Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome, guys. This is the webinar for Google Classroom. I am very excited to be here with you for the next hour. And I hope that whether you're using Google Classroom already or you're brand new to it, that you can take away some things for the classroom to help you manage your documents and integrate technology into your classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's go through some housekeeping. My name is Karen McLaughlin, and I am a staff development specialist for digital citizenship and digital literacy. And I work with teachers kindergarten through 12th grade on integrating technology and how to do that in a safe and responsible manner for kids and teachers. Today, we're going to be talking about Google Classroom, and Ariana Flewelling and Steve Kong are other staff development specialists, and they're going to be doing the secondary Google Classroom webinar later on this afternoon. If you have any questions, there is a question section in this webinar platform. If you could type them in there, I have fabulous Jonathan Dillon here to help me answer those questions and maybe save some for the end that need attention after the webinar. So please, if you have any questions, jot those down in there and we'll get them answered. It may seem that I'm going through all the content in here pretty fast. It will be recorded and you will have access to this webinar after. If you need to go back and look at, hey, how was that done again? You will have access, and I'll talk a little bit about how you'll have access to that after. So let's go ahead and go over the objectives for today and what we'll be doing. We're going to talk about the benefits of Google Classroom. We're going to talk about how it's available on mobile apps, what teachers and students can do, the new Google Chrome extension and how to manage that, and then really getting started in Google Classroom. What are your first steps, and how would I use this in a kindergarten classroom versus a 6th grade classroom? So let's just start off with the benefits. So it actually allows you to have a virtual classroom. You don't have to have the students with you to go over content. It allows you to post content in a virtual sense. The content is available anytime, anywhere. So absent students have access to the assignments. It's an option for you as the teacher to create a completely paperless classroom. And compliments of Google Drive, everything is synced together regardless of what device you're using. So if kids are using and accessing their assignments in Google Classroom at school on a device, they can also go home and access Google Classroom on another device, and everything will be there and everything is synced with their drive. It works really well in a flipped learning environment or a blended learning environment. And so you're probably thinking in your head, as I did when I first came across Classroom, was, well, so does Haiku. And what are the differences between Haiku and Google Classroom? So Haiku is our learning management system, and Google Classroom was never intended to be a learning management system. When Google tools came out, like Docs and spreadsheets and presentations, the people at Google got a lot of questions on how do I manage these documents. My kids are collaborating and I'm getting hundreds and hundreds of emails telling me that they're sharing a document with me. So Google came up with a platform that really helps you manage your documents and assignments when you're using Google tools. And so Haiku is our learning management system, and once you start to use docs and spreadsheets and presentations more frequent in your classroom, you're going to see a need for some way to manage the documents. So it also allows you to quickly check on the student progress. So once you do an assignment and say that you send out a document, you can go to that document through Classroom and see where the student is on the assignment. Another good thing is it's completely integrated with tools. It does have a mobile app that kids can access content from their phone or tablet. And the discussions threads are pretty similar to social media, where the latest one is on the top. And there's a Chrome extension that is really neat for teachers. It allows them to create assignments and make announcements or push any website out to all the students in their Google Classroom. So this has been really helpful, that extension. Say, for instance, in kindergarten classrooms, as long as all the Chromebooks have this classroom extension, and we'll talk about that a little later, on the Chromebooks, a teacher can push a website out to every single one of the kids, and they can immediately go to it instead of having to type in a bit.ly or a web address. So those are kind of some of the differences between Haiku and Google Classroom. Also, there's mobile apps. I mentioned that a little bit with Classroom. And whether a student has an Android or an iOS device, it gives the students and teachers access even when they're not in a school environment or sitting down. So when they're on the go, they have access to Classroom. There's also access to the camera. So something that's kind of neat is when they're doing a science experiment or when they're searching for something out in nature, the kids have the ability through the app to use the camera and then post the picture onto Classroom. So here's a little video that shows how to do that. You can also share to Classroom from other apps. So a universal symbol for share is over here in the bottom right. And when I find a good article and I want to share it or tweet it or put it on Facebook or email it to myself to read later, you can push this button, and a lot of the apps or things that students are researching will say share it with Classroom, and you'll see an icon. So here's a little video that shows how to do that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what teachers and students can do using Google Classroom. So students, one of the greatest benefits is it's completely integrated with Google Drive. So they can get their Gmail, they can create documents, they can use their Google Calendar, and they can better communicate between other students and the teacher. They can ask questions, discuss a topic, and receive feedback from not only the teacher, but also the students. Teachers can post lessons. You can have students blog and post their link into the classroom. You can create assignment, grade student work. You can flip content of your classroom, share a YouTube channel, or do a formative assessment. So I mentioned a little bit earlier the Google Chrome extension, and I want to talk a little bit about that because this is fairly new. You have the ability when you download this extension to your Chrome browser, you have the ability to push websites to everybody in your classroom that has this extension also on their Chrome browser. And so I'm going to demonstrate how that works. And there's also a video here that talks to you about how to go to the Google Chrome Web Store, how to download the extension, and then also that would be the same process the kids would go through. So I'm going to escape out of this presentation for a second, and I'm going to show you here. If you look at my top, right past the Omnibox right here, if you look at the right-hand side of my Chrome window, you'll see that I have a bunch of extensions up here. And all of these are little things that make my job or my activities or tasks while I'm on the internet a little bit shorter. So you'll see I have a Google Classroom extension right here. And when I push on it, I have 2 classes that I'm teaching and 1 class that I am enrolled in. And so I'm going to push sample period 1. And what I can do with this extension, I can use this drop-down menu, and I can create an assignment for my kids right here without even going into Classroom. I can ask a question to my students, or I can make an announcement, or I can push this website to my students by clicking here and then clicking push. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate that for you because you wouldn't see what it would look like on their end. And also, I'd like to caution you because the kids do not have to be on the same Wi-Fi as you. So if I'm at home and I'm sitting on my couch and I'm like, oh, this is good, I want to push this to my kids for tomorrow, and they're in Chrome at their house, you're actually going to push it to their computer, and they'll get a little flag that comes across the top, and it'll say your teacher of sample class wants you to go to this website, something similar to that. So be careful when you're pushing things that your students are in your presence and that you actually want them to go to where you're going to push it. But another great feature is you can create an assignment, ask a question, make an announcement right here without even having to go into Classroom. So it's kind of a shortcut to those things. So let's get back to the presentation. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to get started, and we are going to dive right into logging in for the first time. So you and your students, if you've never logged in, it's important to know that you'll need to do a couple steps. And the first step is going to classroom.google.com. And when you go there, you'll be taken to a window that looks like this. Once you click the sign in button, you'll have a window that looks like one of these. Sorry. And then when you get to this window, there's a really important part that you need to make. Regardless if you are going to be a student in a classroom or a teacher, you as the professional must push teacher. If you accidentally push student, go ahead and email me and I will have that fixed on the back end. But you as a teacher need to always log in as a teacher for the first time. Okay? Same with your students. Your students must always log in as a student. If they log in as a teacher, they're not going to have access to your class. So it's really important that you make sure that they do that on the first time. After that, it'll be fine. So creating a new class, this plus button right here is how you create a new class. And once you push that, once you push the plus button, you will have a window that pops up and it will ask you a class name and a section. In there, you can add your name as the class name or the grade level for the section. Now, once you're in Classroom, there's 3 tabs. There's a Stream, Students, and About. So I'm actually going to log out of this presentation and walk you through all the different things. You'll have access to this presentation, which will have all the screenshots of what I'm going to show you in just a second. So I'm going to go to my classroom by going to classroom.google.com. And here are all my classes. I'm going to show you sample class period 1. I have 5 students in there. The way that I access the class is by clicking on the title. Like I said, there's 3 tabs. There's a Stream tab, a Students tab, and an About tab. We're going to start with the About tab. Now, when I go to the About tab, I see that my class name is right here. If I want to edit it, I can push Edit. And so there's the class title is the first line. Then here's a class description is the second line. Right here could be the room or the period. And then each time you create a class in Google Classroom, it's going to create a folder in your Drive, and it's inside your Classroom folder, and it houses all the activities or things that you've posted in that classroom. So you have one location in your Drive that houses all your documents. You also have a calendar that you can view or open in Google Calendar. And then over on the left-hand side are the teachers. And notice there are 3 teachers in this class. You can invite, I think it's up to 20 teachers per class. So say that you guys are doing rotations and there's 4 teachers for your groups of students. So you can have multiple teachers on one Google Classroom. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is adding materials. So you can add materials such as textbooks, if your textbooks are in digital format, your syllabus, maybe you want to put a teacher introduction or your classroom rules. And so how you would do that is you would just click here and title what resources that you're going to be adding and where are you getting them. Is it a drive? Is it a video? Is it a link? Or is it an attachment? When we come up to the top, you can select the theme. So there's different kind of themes and patterns that they offer. You can also upload a photo. Okay, so I want to click on sample period 1 and show you where that's located in your Drive, just so you know. This was kind of a hidden secret for me for a while. So if I look up here, there's my Drive, which is like the suitcase of all my documents. There's a folder called Classroom, and inside Classroom is my class called Sample Period 1. So I'll show you what that looks like. So here's all the folders for my classes. Okay. All right, let's move on to inviting students. When you are ready to invite your students to the classroom, I think that the easiest way to add them or to have them join is through the class code where my mouse is. And so it's just a simple, sometimes it's 5 digits. This one looks like it's 7 digits. And the way that the students would join is just by the same way that you added a class. So if I go back to the home page, right here, I can click that and I can put the code right here and then push join. And the kids would do the same thing when they're joining. I'm going to push cancel and go back in. Okay, so again, when you're in the Students tab, the class code is right here. Here are my students that are in my class already that have joined. If I want to do something with Eric, I can click on this box and then I have actions. I can remove him, I can email him, or I can mute him. There's another important part on the Students tab that I wanted to talk about. Students can post and comment to the stream, and the stream is like where your assignments go, where your questions go, where your comments go, and your posts go. And so I want to talk a little bit about it. This little section right here, when I push the drop down, it's already defaulted when you create a class to students can post and comment. Set the expectation for your students early on. A good rule of thumb is to tell the students that they can only post or comment on the stream when they're asked to do so by their teacher. So if Sally goes home and she has a question about her homework, the stream is not the place that she needs to go for that question. She can email or she can text a friend or she can email you as a teacher, but the communication needs to be on the stream. It needs to be asked for by the teacher. And so that always helped me when I was in the classroom, or else you'll get someone saying, hey, what are you doing? And you'll have this big old long stream of conversation that has nothing to do with learning. So I'll tell you another way that you can kind of monitor that by student if that occurs. Okay, so another thing is that you can have students only comment on teachers' posts. That's the second option right here. So if I have students can only comment, that means it can only be commenting on teacher posts. The top one is that they can comment on student and teacher posts. And then the bottom one is only the teacher can post their comment. Okay, but I suggest starting out there, setting your expectation, and using when kids are going to mess up. Adults do it all the time. So when kids mess up, using that as a learning experience for your classroom. So once you post a comment, you can click on the 3 dots on the right-hand side, and this will give you 3 options. So I'm going to show you what that looks like by going to the stream. So there's a comment down here. It says, "It's not very nice to add me to the class after the assignment is due." Now, this was put here on purpose so that we could show you guys. This comment was not asked for by the teacher. So I like to call these the 3 marshmallows. As a teacher, I can hit the 3 marshmallows and delete this comment, or I can mute this student. So that would mean that they cannot post or comment on anything else until they're unmuted, but they can still complete their assignments. So it's just taking away the ability for them to post or comment. So you may need to use that from time to time if reoccurrences of misbehavior occur. So now that we're in the Stream tab, we can talk about the Stream tab. The Stream tab is where everything happens, and once you get into your classroom up and running, think of it kind of like Facebook or social media. Anytime you post anything, it's always going to go to the top of the page. So, and the things that you can post are announcements, questions, and assignments. And the 4th option here that you can do is you can reuse a previous post. So you have to click on this plus button right here to do something, like to take an action. And so I'm going to push this, and you'll see the 4 different things that I can do. The 3 boxes on the right over here, this is telling me the first box is the work due soon box. And it gives the students a quick, easy way to glance at what work is coming up. And then the second box, this is important for teachers. You can see all comments, even the ones that students deleted. So kind of like the revision history in docs, where if a student's misbehaving, you can go to the revision history and see who did it or what got deleted. You can also do that right here in this box. And then here's just another place for the class code. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a feature. If you need to reset the class code, or sometimes at the secondary level, they disable it because all the kids have joined and they don't want other kids joining from other classes, so they'll disable the class code. But at the elementary level, you might not need to do that. So posting options. The first thing you can post on your stream is an assignment. So I'm going to click on assignment, and this is where it really gets going because you can create assignment, fill in the details. The top line is for the title of the assignment. Here's where you can put the instructions. And in the beginning, you may need to have instructions that look similar to this. Let me go back to my slideshow. We're on the Stream tab. So right here is a sample assignment. I always like to number mine so that I know which number assignment it is, and I start with 001, so that gives me about 999 options to have for assignments for the year. And then right here, you may want to start off with really explicit instructions. Click the open button, click on create, and create a Google Doc. Tell me about yourself. Click on turn in when you are done. As you start using Classroom more often, you won't need to have such explicit directions. And then when you select when you want the assignment to be due. So maybe you don't want a due date. Maybe you do want a due date. And you can also put the time you want it to be done, and then click Save. Select a file you want to attach. If you look at the bottom right here, you have the ability for quite a few different things that you want to attach to the assignment. If you select a document from your Google Drive, you'll have even more options. So I'll show you what that looks like. So let's just say that I'm going to click on ILAPD, and I'm going to put, let's say, this PDF. Well, I should probably do a document. Let's see. Let's do this one. So I attached it, and I can see that I have a drop down. Students can view file. This is really important. Right now, only the students can view file, and they have to say file, make a copy. If I'm asking them in the instructions to do stuff with that document, I don't want it to be view only, because this is the beauty of Classroom. I can say students can edit the file. That means that all the students can edit the one file. But if I click make a copy for each student, when I post this assignment, each student is going to get an individual copy attached to their Google Drive that will allow them to edit it without having to go to file, make a copy. So when talking about how Google Classroom helps with document management, this is one of the big things that, kids aren't having to go, I can't edit this. Well, it's because you need to go to file, make a copy. When you post an assignment and you make a copy for each student, they will get their own individual copy. So something to keep in mind. Also, there in the attachment section, there is a drop-down button. And it's telling me that I'm posting this to the classroom called Sample Period 1. But say that I teach 3 sections of this course and I need to post it to 3 different classrooms. I don't have to recreate that assignment. I can post it to all 3 of those periods, or maybe if I'm doing rotations, all 3 of those different groups. Maybe it's a reading rotation that I have this classroom designed for. So that's how you would create an assignment to the stream. Another thing you can do is you can create a question. So let's go over what that looks like. So you kind of want to keep these questions open-ended or short discussion board questions. They appear on the stream for students to answer, and they also appear in the work do box. So if I X this out, here's a question right here that was posted, and it says, how do you keep your information safe while being on social media? So let's go find that one on the stream right here, and I can see it as a teacher that 1 student has done it and 4 have not done it. And I did not allow in here, if I go to edit, let's see. So I'll have to show you in the teacher view. So it's very similar to creating an assignment. If I create a question, I can type in, what is your favorite color? Question mark. Maybe the instructions will be, please answer in a complete sentence. The due date, I don't need a due date for this. I don't need to attach anything, and I can ask. Now, this is what I was looking for. There's a box that's going to pop up, and it's going to say, see and reply to each other's answers, or allow students to edit their answers. So if I have this box checked, see and reply to each other's answers, it's going to allow the students to see the answers and reply to them. So this is good for discussion board or open-ended questions where you want the students to give feedback. If you're asking them the answer to a math question, probably not the best thing to do up here by posting a question, because all the kids are going to answer the same answer by just looking at everybody's. But you can hide the answers by unchecking that first box so that nobody sees the answers. And that's what I did here. So you can see one person's done, but you can't see their answer. So that's how you do a question. The other thing you can do is you can just simply post announcements. So when we look over on the right-hand side under the plus, you can say create an announcement. And this is where you might say, hey class, make sure you study tonight for our science test tomorrow. Or maybe you want to share a video with the students and say, can you please watch this before you come to school tomorrow? Or you want to share a PDF for them to read. The announcement section is a good place to do it. It shows up on the stream, and it also gives all your students an email saying that there has been an announcement posted. Same with assignments and questions. Your students will get an email. If you don't want your students to get that email notification, you can go over here. I call these our pancakes, and then these over here, the marshmallows. You can go over to your pancakes, which is usually your settings, and you can go down to the settings wheel, and you could have, it's usually defaulted to send email notifications, but if you don't want your students to be bombarded with email notifications, you can uncheck that and they won't be receiving emails from you about what you post in Google Classroom. One more thing I want to talk about on the stream. Say there's a writing assignment that I want to open back up because the due date's coming past and my students really bombed it. We need to do it again. I can reuse this post instead of creating a new assignment. So if I hit the marshmallows over here, I can move it to the top, and you can see that it came to the top again. But if I want to reuse a post, maybe in another classroom or something from a long, long time ago, the fourth option under the plus is reuse a post. This allows you to reuse a post from previously. You can make changes to it according for the new post, whatever you want to do under the edit. But say that something in the camps class I wanted to use for the sample class. So I can select the camps class, and I can look at all the posts that we have done, and I might want to reuse that one. And then right here, I would edit it or redo it according to this class, and then push ask. Yes, I want them to see their answers. And so it comes to the top of the screen. So again, in the stream, you have 4 options to post. You also have the quick overview of what's due. You have the ability to see comments and posts that were deleted by students, and you have your class code. So there's a couple other functions I'm going to talk about with you. I talked about how you can move a post up to the top. That's really the only way you can reorganize your stream. Seeing students work. There's 2 ways to do this. You can do it simply by just clicking on the assignment, and it's going to take you into a student view. And you have the ability to sort by status, first name or last name. Okay. So after you assign it, you can monitor the student's work during the progress by just clicking on the link. You can add a grade. So I see that Eric is done. If I click right here, I can add a grade for him. Maybe I feel that he deserved an 80. And I'm going to push enter. And his grade. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what, you guys, I need to take that back. This is the point value. So right now it's out of 100 points. Let me change that back. Down here is where I would give him an 80. So it says 80 out of 100. Up here you can adjust the total points. If it was just out of 5 and he got 3 out of 5, then you would adjust up at the top right here, 5. And it's not returned to him yet, but there is a box right here checked. So I can push the return button. And right now it's saying return work to 1 student. Students will be notified and can check the grade you've left. And maybe I want to write a private comment to him. So this will not go to everybody. It will only go to Eric. And I want to say, nice job. Oops. And maybe I want to say, be careful with your punctuation on the next one. And when I click return, he will receive an email with the private comment that will let him know that it has been graded. I'm going to cancel that. So up here is the settings, and you sometimes depending on what you're asking. So this one was an assignment, so it's telling me under my settings that I can copy all the grades to a Google Sheets, or I can download all the grades to a CSV. or download these grades as a CSV. So the ones that are checked, or download all grades. And then that can be easily exported into a gradebook, or you can just keep a Google Sheets for the assignment for your grades. Sometimes it'll ask, if it's a question, you can click here and you can select a box that says students can edit their answers, or students can see and reply to each other's answers if you're posting a question. So the last thing I wanted to go over is another way to see the work. If I click on the pancakes up in the left-hand corner, I can click on work. And this is all the work that my students are working on. And so I can quickly see which assignments need a little bit more nudging, or which assignments are almost due and ready for me to grade. Also, under those 3 little lines is something called a calendar. And one of the differences between Haiku and Google Classroom is that Haiku allows for a parent flyover. So if the parents have an email on file, they actually can log into your Haiku course and have like a flyby view. They can't post, they can't comment, they can't do anything, but they can definitely click through the content and look at what their children are learning in your class. Classroom does not have that ability, but what it does have is the ability to share your calendar. So when I click calendar, this is a new feature in Google Classroom, and it's pretty cool because anytime you post an assignment or a question with a due date, it automatically posts it to your classroom calendar. And all the students in your class can view this calendar. It makes it really simple for them to see what's coming up. So let's click over here. And then to get to the calendar, you click the calendar. You as a teacher can manually also add things to the calendar, like say you want to add field trips or picture days, or things that the students or parents need to be aware of. The other thing that you can do is you can share this calendar with parents. So on back to school night, you may want to say, hey parents, here's a link to my calendar. This is where you'll find out all the assignments your kids are doing. Have discussions with them about how they answered questions, what they did, how they did on the assignments, and have them share with you. It's kind of a way to connect classroom with parents and at home. And the way that you do this, it can be a little tricky, but I wanted to show you because I think it's an important part. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go to calendar.google.com. So I'm going to open up Cal. And once I do that, over on the left, you'll see a little drop-down tab that says My Calendars. I can see that sample period 1 is a calendar, and I can click on it. So now I'm in that calendar. And I can see that all those things that I'm posted. If you were to add something to this calendar, this is how you would add it. You would need to go to calendar.google.com and add an event, and it will show up to your students. When you create an assignment or a question, it automatically gets put on there. So I'm going to have you go to your settings wheel and then click settings again. Up here you have a couple tabs under RUSD Learns. If you click on the calendars tab, and you go, here's sample period 1. You're going to share, edit the sharing settings. And right here, you can share this calendar with others, and you can make this calendar public. You need to make sure you save that. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to make it public? Yes. And then now, when we click on sample period 1, we can scroll down and click HTML. It's a big, huge link. I would take this and shorten it, and if you guys need help creating bit.lys, you can reach out to me and let me know. We have a tutorial on that as well, and a bit.ly is just a shortened link. And I would label this Calendar McLaughlin 2016 and send this link to my parents and make sure that they have access to what's going on in Google Classroom. So that really sums up walking through Google Classroom. But I'm going to go back to the presentation and kind of go through what else is included in this presentation and how you can access this for later use. So throughout the presentation, there's everything that we went over. So there's the student view, how to see student work, assigning grades, creating a question, announcement, reuse a post, communicating with students. It talks about how to make the Google Calendar public. And then I wanted to talk about this. There really is a workaround to creating group assignments in Google Classroom. And this video is for you to watch and decide, hey, I think that's something I might want to try out. Here's a video for some cool updates that I talked about. It just goes into a little bit more detail about downloading your students' grades, adding private comments when returning grades, that's a new feature, and then sorting your students in the assignment, like by done, first name or last name. Just a while ago, you weren't able to add a form to Google Classroom, and now the kids have the ability to add work on a form within Google Classroom. So I'm going to show you this short video. So this is a teacher adding a Google form as an assignment from the Google Drive. And this is what it looks like when the kids go in. They can work on the Google form right in there. Click submit. And then on the teacher end, it says that the assignment is completed. So that's a pretty cool new feature. Something that I wanted to include for you guys is you may be thinking, this sounds really cool. I want to introduce it to my students. Is there stuff out there that's already created for students? So from this section on in the presentation are student tutorial videos introducing them to Google Classroom and other functions of Google Classroom. So this video can be used for students, and what it is the narrator is talking to students. So it's not for teachers, it's for students, and it's just Classroom 101, basics of what it is. And then it'll talk to the students about viewing their assignments. What does that look like? Working on assignments, what to do, how to turn it in. Questions in Google Classroom. Sharing your post to the class stream. And then right now I'm going to take you to the haiku site. So if I could have you guys just watch, or if you're using another computer, I'm going to go to the RUSD haiku site. I'm going to show you where all the resources are located so that you have access to them after this webinar. So when you log in, you probably have a long list like I do of classes that you've enrolled in or either somebody else has enrolled you in. So we didn't want to bog down that list even more. So if you notice by classes, you have an extras tab. If you click on the extras tab, there's something called Google Basics Training. And this is where all of our training resources are housed for Drive and Docs, for Google Slides, and Google Classroom. And the others to come will be also posted here. So if you look, here's where you would find the information for Google Docs and Drive. Here's where you'd find the information for slides. Oh, we did the Google Draw, and then let's click on Google Classroom. Now there's two different kinds of presentations that we're going over. You guys are the webinar ones, so I'm going to click on Google Classroom Webinar and show you what's on that page. So there's the introduction and objective. Also right here is the whole presentation that I just went over with you. I want to make sure that you know this is the objective page, but it's also the table of contents. So if you're like, oh, I wanted to, and you know what, I don't see that it says student tutorials. We're going to have to put one more section under here that will say student tutorials, and we'll update that for you. But say you want to go through the images on the Let's Get Started. You can just click right there and it'll take you right to it. Okay. And then right here, here's where you can access, in a couple days, we'll have the webinar posted here for you to access later. And make sure you're on the elementary webinar. if you need to go back and listen. Steve Kong's created kind of like a cheat sheet for teachers and students on what each little part of each tab and function of classroom is. Now, if you're like, I kind of get it, but I need a little bit more help, here's a step-by-step tutorial that will walk you through the basics of Google Classroom. But if you're like, I knew 99% of the stuff that Karen told me today, I'd like you to stretch your abilities and learn about some advanced features by walking through this tutorial. It'll talk to you about installing add-ons, Doctopus, Kubrick, and DocAppender. And this is the end of our webinar.